All right. Welcome everyone to lesson 2-5. This is on graphing proportional relationships. So your I can statement is I can use a graph to determine whether two quantities are proportional. All right. So make sure if you need to pause this, write this down under your objective. All right, and we'll move on. So, like the title of this lesson says, we're going to be working a lot with graphing. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to quickly go over some of these parts of a coordinate grid that you may have seen before, just to make sure that you guys are feeling comfortable with graphing. So first off, we are going to be, we're going to label some of these things. So the first thing, we've got two different axes. We've got, or axes. We've got the y-axis, which is this one right here, up and down. And then we've got the side-to-side one, which is our x-axis, okay? So when we are, so we've labeled that, okay? The origin is this point right here in the middle, okay? And that is also called 0, 0. Okay, so that's always going to be your starting point, especially when you are graphing. Now, most of what we're going to be doing when we're graphing this is we're actually going to be working in the first quadrant. So each section of a coordinate grid has, there's 4 different sections of a coordinate grid, okay? There's the first section, there's the second quadrant, third quadrant, and the fourth quadrant, okay? We're going to be mostly working in that number 1 quadrant when we're graphing using these proportional relationships, okay? So now we've named the quadrants. And just to quickly practice graphing, you're always going to graph x, then y. So when we have 0.35, we're graphing x, then y. So we're going to go across 3 on the x-axis and up 5. So it's actually going to be right here next to my 1. If you can see that dot right there, that is my 0.35. Okay, so I went over 3, up 5. All right, so that's your little coordinate grid review of graphing points. So let's get into the proportional relationship part of this lesson. All right. So when you're looking at a proportional relationship, when you're looking at a graph, there's 2 different ways you can determine if what you're looking at or what you're graphing is in fact a proportional relationship. The first way is the information in that y equals kx formula we learned in lesson 2-4. So that's this right here. So always look if they have like y equals 7x or y equals 1/3 x or y equals, I don't know, 0.5x. Those would all be considered proportional relationships. If, for example, it was y equals 7x plus 2, that plus 2 makes it not a proportional relationship. So you would say that is not a proportional relationship, okay? So the other way is to look at the actual graph. A proportional relationship is always going to be a straight line through the origin. So it's going to start at 0 and it's going to come out in a straight line. No curves. It's not going down like this. It's coming out of 0 and going up positively. Okay. So these are 3 different examples where, like, this one has my k, my constant of proportionality at 6. This one has my constant of proportionality at 2. This one has my constant of proportionality at 1/2. So you can see how the graph changes depending on what the constant of proportionality is, but all 3 of these lines are considered proportional relationships. So in your notes, you can just make sure you write down these 2 things. And then also you can draw an example. You don't have to draw all three, but you can draw at least one example of what a proportional relationship should look like. So some sort of line going through 0, going straight up. Okay, so let's look at some examples. First example. We've got Tanya exercised for 30 minutes. She noted the calories burned at 3 times during her workout. How can Tanya use this information to find how many calories she burned after 15 minutes? Okay, so right away, I'm going to create a graph of the information in these pictures. So let's see, can I move this? Sorry, guys. All right, there we go. Okay, so I am looking at here. I've got at 10 minutes, I'm burning 95 calories. At 20 minutes, I'm burning 190. At 30 minutes, I'm burning 285. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to label my graph, and I'm going to make it so I'm going kind of across the bottom. I'm going to be looking at my time here. So this bottom part's going to be time. So the minutes. Across the side is going to be the calories. So this over here is going to be my calories. I'm sorry, I'm writing with my finger on my Chromebook. So view calories. Okay, you guys get it. All right, so we've got, looks like we're kind of working in, hundreds and stuff like that. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to say I have like 50. I'm going to go up. I'm going to make the next one like 100. Okay, I'm going to go up a couple more, 150, 200. Okay. And then across the bottom, I'm going to go by time. I'm going to count by 5s. So I'm going to go 5, 10, 15. You get the drift. 20 all the way down. Okay, that's a 0. Okay. All right. So, hold on. I just want to make sure something is, there we go. Okay. So, we are going through and we are going to look at each of these information. We're going to graph it. So at about at 10 minutes, it looks like I'm at about 95 calories. So I'm about here. Okay. Then at about 20 minutes, I am at 190. So I'm going to go 20 minutes up to about 190, so it's close to 200, about there, okay? And then at 30 minutes, I am at about 285, so we'll say about here, okay? So if you see, my line is going to go kind of like that, okay? And it should be a straight line. Sorry about my bad drawing. So I've got this straight line. Now it wants to know at about 15 minutes, about how much am I burning? Okay. So I'm going to look over at the 15 minutes here and I'm going to go up to where it meets the line, which is about right here. If you look, my 15 minutes right here matches up. I would say somewhere in between about there. So that means I would say it's not quite 150, more like maybe around 140. So I would say that it's approximately about 140. Okay. Some of these graphs are going to be better than others depending on, especially if they give you the actual like numbers and things like that on the graph and you're not creating it like this, it'll make more sense. Okay. So that's how you can create a graph. Okay, make sure that you are like looking here. You've got time, we've got calories. We figured out which was which. And then we drew our line. We know it's a proportional relationship because it started at 0 and it's going a straight line right up. Okay. All right. Let's look at another example. So for this one, each 4th cup serving of cereal has 3 grams of protein. How can you use the graph at the right to determine whether the quantities are proportional and to find how many grams of protein are in 1 cup of cereal? All right, so again, I am going to hold on, move this first. And then I'm going to take this information, I'm going to start to graph it. So right away, they gave us a graph here. They made our X, my cups of cereal, and my Y, my grams of protein. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna graph this information. So at a 4th cup cereal, which is what is said right here, it has 3 grams of protein. So I'm gonna make that point right here. All right. So I think it's safe to say that every time we go up a 4th, we're adding another 3 grams of protein. So at a half, now I'm going to be at 6. At 3/4, I'm going to be at 9. And so right now, I've got this proportional relationship that's looking like that. If I were at 1, we want to know how much would be at 1 cup of cereal. Add an additional 3 onto here. If I were to keep going on my line and up here, I could see that adding another 3 would get me to 12. So 1 cup of cereal would equal 12 grams. Now, how can you find the second part? It says, how can you find the constant of proportionality from the coordinates of 1 point on the graph? Here's the biggest trick. Whenever X is 1, whatever Y is your constant of proportionality. So in this case, it's going to be that 12 for us here. Kind of goes off the grid a little bit here. So my constant, my Y equals KX formula would become Y equals 12X, because this 12 shows me where X is 1, Y is 12, so that's where I would get this from. Okay? So we just used a graph to create our equation here, our formula. All right, we've got 2 more examples here, and then we will be done. So next example, we've got the graph shows a proportional relationship between the distance and the amount of time Mr. Brown arrives. What does each of these points represent in this situation? So right away, at 0, 0, we know we haven't gone anywhere. No time has passed, no distance. I haven't gone anywhere. Okay. Once an hour has struck, the 1:55, now all of a sudden at 1, I've gone 55 miles. So I can say that 1:55 and even like 5:275 means my miles are 2 per hour how much I have traveled. Okay? So, like I said before, for the second part, what is the constant of proportionality? That means what is my K? So, what is my Y over X? Or when X is 1, what is Y? In this case, it's 55. So I would say my K is 55. So then what equation relates distance Y at the time X? That they're looking for your constant of proportionality question or equation. So Y equals 55X. Okay. So again, we learned in the last lesson that every time you want to find the k, you would divide y divided by x. Now we're looking at when you look at a graph, anytime x is 1, whatever y is, that's your k. So it's two different ways of approaching the problem depending on what information you're given. Okay? All right. Last example, we're just naming whether or not these graphs show a proportional relationship. So right away when I look at this, does this first one show a proportional relationship? Yes or no? Yes, it does. All right. I'm trying to move this real quick. No, I want it. Okay. So, yes. Oh, that's how you get rid of it. This one, because it does not start, yes, it's a straight line, but it does not start at 0. So this one would be no. And then this last one, he starts at 0, but he curves. We don't want curves, so no. So yes, no, no. All right, so you guys have an IXL to complete. I believe it's AAN. Please make sure that you have all of these notes written down. I might check them when I come back. Otherwise, that is all I have for you. All right. Thank you, guys.